So the bigger one is for the base, like going around the hips and stuff. So this is the one that you always want to start with first, okay? So you want to start above the waist to get it hooked in, because as the table starts going, it's going to pull this down. So you want to make sure that it starts a little bit higher than the hips, so when it does kind of settle in, it's going to be locked on to the pelvis instead of you know, slipping below his waist. So this has already kind of been preset for Sam, because I think he's the last one, honestly, or maybe the only one who's like used it. But you want the panels to kind of rest right here on the hip as you see. You don't want them too far back or too far forward, so that these are basically going to be hanging right down to the side of his legs, you know, so that you're getting, you just know that it's in a good position from that standpoint. So tighten these down initially, make sure they're good and snug. So again, we don't want him to get on the table, start pulling, and then again, the pads like slip off or something. So adjust them now, and then you'll do it again when you actually get the person on the table. So then you have the smaller panels here, the smaller pads. This is for the upper part of the body. So they will probably overlap a little bit, but they're kind of like suspenders. So kind of the same deal. Hold on, this thing popped off. So you want the loops to be the upper, like it's going to go more proximal, okay? So same deal as the bottom one. Wrap around. Again, you're going to have a little bit of overlap, which is fine. Oops. So you almost probably have to draw these out just a little bit to get the clips together initially, and then tighten them up from there. Just make sure, like I did here, you want to make sure that these are not, like the actual clips are not getting hooked up. The clips here. So I almost have them kind of like, go ahead and put your arms through here. Go ahead and just set these up so that they're already like ready to go. Wrong one, wrong one. Put that one down. And this one's hung up. Yeah, there we go. There we go. So kind of put those on like suspenders so that they're out of the way. And then same deal as before, you're gonna get these two hooked up. Can you face the camera real quick? If they overlap, that's fine, because when he lays down, they're gonna splay a little bit too, and then especially when the table starts pulling. So it's okay if they're overlaying each other initially. You'll just make the adjustments once they're down on the table. But get them nice and snug so that they hopefully don't move too much. All right, so then you have Sam lay down on the table. So we want the pull from the base here, from the bottom ones, to be direct with the machine. So we need to get the legs and stuff out of the way too. So usually a stool or just some platform for them to put their legs on so that their legs stay out of the way. All right, lift up, Sam. And then also too, you want the pull of the table to be right where they, like lumbar spine, right where they kind of feel the discomfort. So usually what I do, separation of the table is gonna be right here. So I'll put my hand underneath him here, so Sam can kind of feel where my hand is, and he feels where the separation of the table is, so that he can set his body up right where he feels like he needs the pull, okay? So once you get into that position, you gotta use this little bar here. This is what hooks up the two rings here at the bottom. Where's the other one? There we go. So put it underneath the stool, hook one here, and then the other one here. So that way it just has a center of pull, because this is going to come from the machine here. You can get a little closer, Elijah, if you need to actually see the machine set up. I'll come to the other side. So in order to release this, you have to pull this towards you. So it won't go if you just go up. You have to go out and then up to unlock it. Pull this out decently enough to hook it up. Then do it again so it takes the slack off. All right, so now, you know, it's still loose, but it's going to take most of the slack off of the machine so that it's at least taut enough to where you can make adjustments. Okay, so now his bottom part, the bottom portion is set. So now we gotta anchor the top to the table. So there's these two straps, okay? So what you're gonna do is find those rings up top here, and you're gonna clip. Same deal as before. It's usually easier when you start it with a slack and then tighten it up as you go. So clip one here, and then it's gonna clip down onto the table here. And then you just wanna tighten it up. You don't have to go crazy tight just yet. We wanna make sure that he's good first. So ideally try to make sure that the bands are all right and not twisted or tangled or anything like that, so that they're not like digging into the patient. So clip to the table again. All right, so again, you're not cranking on it too much just yet. Once you get them hooked up, go back to where you set up the original clips, and you just want to tighten everything down again so that's not going to slide. So it can kind of be a little uncomfortable, obviously, because again, you're kind of cranking on the patient's midsection, but it kind of needs to be that way. So again, you're just cranking on every strap, making sure that it's good and snug. Doing okay, Sam? Okay, so once they're set there, come back here, pull these nice and taut. So now he's locked in and he's not going anywhere, okay? So before we set up the machine, so what's gonna happen is the table is going to separate. So this is gonna stay anchored and this is gonna slide, this portion of the table is gonna slide down towards the machine, and that's where you're gonna get your traction, that's where you're gonna get your pull. And it's all, in this case, it's set up at the lumbar spine, okay? So you need to unlock the table. These little black handles here are how you do that. So going towards the head is what unlocks the table, going towards the feet is what locks it, okay? So we want to unlock the table, and then you can get a little closer here again, Elijah, so you can see how to set up the machine. So this big line here is just a kill switch. Always give it to the patient. There you go, Sam. All right, so we need to do a little math here. How much do you weigh, Sam? 285. So we want to try to do 40%. So we're going to move it up a little bit. We did it at 30, so you never want to go over 50. That's one big thing. You never want to go over 50%. 50% is the max when it comes to this. And then usually minimum is about 25% is a good starting point. But we've been kind of doing this for a little bit now, so we've been kind of slowly progressing. So we're going to get up to about 40%. So 40% is about 114 pounds. So the dial here, so I like doing static. You can either do, I like doing intermittent. You can do static if you want, where the pull is constant, or you can do intermittent, where it's going to fluctuate between a max and a min. So I typically feel like we get better responses with this. So you can see the dials. I got it to about 110. So we said 114 pounds, so you want to try to get it up to about 115. It doesn't have to be exact, and you can make adjustments as you go. And then the min is usually give or take about a 40-pound difference. So if we're at like 115 pounds, we could probably get them up to, you know, give or take about 85, I think should be fine with what we're trying to do here. And then you have your hold time and rest time. So hold time is when it's at its max, rest time is when it's at its min, okay? So you wanna make sure that those dials are set up too. Usually with Sam, I've been doing about 30, 35 seconds on. You can go all the way up to 50 if you want. I don't typically ever do a minute. I'd say 50 is about the most I ever do, but for the sake of this, I'm doing about 30 seconds on and then 10 seconds off, okay? So to turn the machine on, you hit the green button, okay? So it takes more of the slack out as the machine's getting set, because again, it wants to be a direct line of pull. So then as you turn the dial here is what's gonna start the pull itself, okay? So we do this for about 10 minutes. It's gonna start beeping because it starts standard with cervical. So it'll start beeping because it's too much tension or too much pull. So you just have to hit the button again, and it transfers it to lumbar, okay? And that's what's gonna give your pull. So as soon as I start this, it's going to do it. hit the button, and now you're set to lumbar, okay? So now the machine's gonna start doing its pull. I usually kind of tell Sam what poundage he is at as far as pressure, so that if we need to kind of go down, we can go. So we're at 40 pounds right now. You'll see the table's gonna start splitting apart. So about 60 pounds of pressure. And then again, this stuff's gonna slide. So this is gonna go up and this is gonna go down. So you just wanna make sure things are nice and snug. So again, that the panels are not gonna slip off of his waist or slip off of his upper body. So you're at about 105 pounds right now, 111. So we crank it up just a tad bit more. So we can try to get up to 115. So there we go, that's about 115 pounds. How's that feel? Good. So again, you see the separation of the table. So again, it's gonna stay on at about 115 pounds for about 30-ish, 35 seconds, whatever you have the dial set to, and then you'll see it'll switch here in a couple of seconds probably. It'll switch down to his min, which we had it set at about 85 pounds. And so it's just gonna alternate doing that for about 10 minutes, and then that's pretty much the treatment. So, and then you're just basically unhooking everything as you go, as they finish up. But then that's it. Cool?